I was born in Tennessee, Halls, Tennessee, in 1930. Well, that's where my mother was living. She moved from Crockett County down to Lauderdale County. We were out in the rural area, and they settled there. I'm the family historian because I'm the youngest child my mother had, and she would always tell me things that she did not tell the older kids. My mother had 9 children. Gladys, John, Golise, Little Kitty, and Emma, Georgia, Harriet, Junior, and myself, Elma Lou. And I am the only one that's left. The Henning Farm was a big plantation. I went to school there, I went to church there, and they had lots of sharecroppers living there. The school and the church was one building, and a few years before we left to go to school up in the hills, as they called it, they built a separate school from the church. But the church and the school was the same place for a long time. John was like a father to the family because he was the oldest brother. My mother's husband had passed, and John took over like he was our father.
If the kids could meet John Rogers, my father, they would know instantly the strength. He always had good advice, and he would tell the kids what is important for them today. Kids always loved my dad. They gravitated towards him because he was real. You know, he would give you the real deal. So there's everything within me would love it if all the kids now could see my dad and meet my dad, and more importantly for him to meet them and to see the generations continuing in the Rogers family.
I remember how we used to, Daddy would sit up and go to sleep, and we would sneak up behind him on the couch or something and get him to start messing with his hair. Again, we braided his hair on. He'd have little braids all over his head when he woke up. Now that was fun. That was really fun. I remember how he'd always tell us about, when he was having a storm or something, lightning and stuff. We always had to be at home. And he would, wherever he would make it home. So to be there with us, because, Mama was working during the day. And he would be there, and we'd have to turn out every light. You pull down the shades and stuff, and you just sit there. You just sit there in the dark. He said, Lord don't bother you when you doing your work, so he don't want you bothering him when he doing his. He was fun, He used to have a good time.
Aunt Georgie was probably the classiest woman I know. I mean, she had a lot of style, a lot of class, a lot of etiquette. She is the epitome of what people might think of when they think of a Southern belle. But we used to call her the Belle of Webster Groves because of her fashion sense and her fashion style. She loved hats and purses and just anything fashionable. I remember sometimes when I would call and she would always say, "Where's my purse? Where are my shoes?" She was just a really, really sweet, funny lady. And I remember when she died and I went into her bedroom, I never realized that she collected hats. And I saw on her wall all of these magnificent hats that here it was I thought she was wearing, and she was actually she had them on her wall. It was quite amazing. It told you a lot about her. She was just a really, really special lady.
Harriet was a little on the mean side, and everybody in the family would say yes ma'am and no sir to the white people, yes ma'am and no sir. Harriet wouldn't do that. And my mother would always tell her, Harriet, you need to talk right to the people. She said, I talk to them like they talk to us. And they all called her crazy, and nobody ever bothered her. Mm-hmm. Now the man that we lived on his farm that helped to take care of us, he had a brother-in-law that wasn't quite right, and Harriet would tell him, don't come past my house no more in your white shirt and starched and iron khaki pants. And he asked her why not. She said, you go in the back of our house just like we come to the back door of your house, and don't pass in front of my house like that no more. So he thought Harriet was playing. The very next day he came down the dusty road and had on this nice starched and iron white shirt and khaki pants. And Harriet come to the door. She said, Jim Bob, didn't I tell you don't come down past my house no more? Dressed like that? Harriet, I'm going up the street, up the road to Jim's house. She said, turn around and go in the back of my house. And he thought she was playing, so he didn't do it. She went outside, got him, and threw him down in the dusty road and pulled him around in a circle like the wind had blown him around and had him all dirty. And he ran back up the road crying to his sister's house. And he was a 30-year-old man. And then the very next day, he'd come back on his way to the same house. And when we had a lane that would go in back of our house. When he got to the lane, he said, my brother Junior and myself was on the front. He hollered, is Crazy Harriet there? And Junior said, yes, she's standing in the door. He turned and went down the lane and went to Mr. Jimmy's house in the back of our house. Junior was special because he was overprotective of me. If I would have a fight at school, he would always take the fight over. He would not let anybody hit me. My mother would threaten to whoop me, and he would always say, Mama, don't whoop her. She's too little, and I'll take her whooping. I remember when we was going to school, and the teacher was going to whoop me for some hearsay. And my brother Junior told him, no, you ain't going to whoop her. You whoop me. And he said, she's the one that said it, and I'm going to whoop her. And him and his cousin told him, you ain't going to whoop her. If you whoop her, then you got to whoop both of us. And they were suspended from school. They could not go back to that school. And a year later, they was out of school for almost a year.
William Rucker was my grandfather's name. He gave me the nickname Monkey Red, which was not a flattering name at all, but it was mine. And so he gave all well, at the time it was my older brother, myself, and then my younger brother. And so he gave all three of us names. I think my oldest brother was Foots, or something like that. I was Monkey Red, and I think Billy was Nooks. But anyway, we all had our own names, but I felt like mine out of all of them, he's probably saying she's the, cutest little baby, but I'm gonna give her an ugly name. I don't know. So, so that's just my memory of him. I remember he smoked a pipe, and so whenever I smell a pipe smell, I think of him.
What makes Elle special is that even on days where she don't feel too well, she's committed to family. She's going to make sure that you eat, that you're not without. She's going to make sure your well-being is okay. And that's something to teach the younger generations, that, no matter what, no matter how sick or hard it may be, you keep working for family, because that's really all you got when it all boils down. The memories I have with Elle are, just being in a house with her and her feeding everybody, and at one point in time it being 20-something people living in one house, and she still made the time to feed everybody, and she kept a roof over all our heads. And just togetherness, that regardless if it's blood or otherwise, you know, family is in the heart, not just the blood. So it teaches you that not just blood can be your family, that the world, you can embrace the world as your family if they deserve to be embraced in a fashion.
I love you, El. I love you, and I'm gonna say this. I never have ever said this. It's always been El, but I love you, Mama.
I remember when we used to go to the racetrack when we stayed on Thrush, and every time she wins, she used to let us come there and pick out between 5s, 1s, and 10s, which one we wanted. And she used to always trick me and tell me the dollar was the 10, and I used to always pick them.
El is special because her goodness just radiates. You can walk in a room and she's there and you can sense it. She's always been there for me. She's just a kind, sweet, good-hearted person who's always been a caregiver for somebody else. My husband would go to work and El and I would go out. We've always been close. We've never had an argument. I can call her when I have a problem. She can call me. Just being around her inspires me. When I fuss at her about doing so much for everybody, she turns it right back on me. So we're just like sisters.
What I was able to do was trace our history back to a gentleman by the name of Peter Mayfield and his wife Carolyn Mayfield. And so Peter was born in 1820, somewhere between 1824 and 1830 in Haywood County, Tennessee, and he married Carolyn Mayfield, and the two of them together had 5 children. Harriet Mayfield, which was my great grandmother, William Mayfield, Walsh Mayfield, Louisa Mayfield, and then John Mayfield, and then Harriet Mayfield married Cicero Jelks in 1871. And Cicero's parents were Peter and Esther Jelks. Cicero was born in 1853, and he married Harriet in 1871. And then they had 3 or maybe 4 kids, but they definitely had 3. Kitty Jelks, Luke Jelks, and then Georgia Jelks, which we all know as Mama Georgie because most of us descend from her. And so then Mama Georgie, of course, married John Rogers, and then they had 5 children, Kitty, Gladys, Golies, Emma, and then John. The 4 girls died, and John, of course, didn't die too much later in 1978. And then Mama Georgie went on and had 4 other kids, Aunt Georgie, Harriet, Junior or William Walker, and then my grandmother Elle. It was very interesting. Marriage licenses of your great-grandparents or your great-great-parents. The 1930 census record showed as the head of household Georgia Rogers, which was Mama Georgie, and it had all the kids listed in there. And you know, it was a magical find because also listed on the census record was a gentleman by the name of Samuel Mayfield, and he was listed as a cousin. And so I was able to go back and talk to my grandmother and say, who is this Samuel Mayfield? And then that's when she started to tell me a lot about the Mayfield line. And she told me that her grandmother's name was Harriet, and that Harriet had a brother named Bill. And so that opened the key for me because prior to that, I wasn't even thinking about Mayfield. I was, you know, searching on the Rogers. So having that piece of information became critical for me because once I had Harriet Mayfield, then I was able to go back and trace, and I finally found the 1870s. This 1930 census record is really the gem and the key to the family history, and it's special to me because it showed a few things. One, it showed, like I said, it allowed me to trace the rest of the lineage through the Mayfield line. And secondly, it was critical because it was the first time that I could see my grandmother or my great-grandmother and all her kids living together as a family unit, and that was quite impressive. And the third reason was the census record listed Emma on there, and that was quite a find, because my grandmother has always told me that she had 4 sisters who died, and Emma died when she was, in her 20s, and so, this was but she doesn't have pictures of any of the sisters, and so this census record was the first piece of documented evidence that Emma actually existed, and so I thought that was really, I found some pretty interesting stuff about Luke, his registration card, led me to knowing that he was Mama Georgie's brother, because at the bottom of the registration card you see he has listed as next of kin as Georgie Rogers, his sister, who lives in Halls, Tennessee. So the fact that, we don't know Luke's descendants or Kitty's descendants, or even the existence, or I can't confirm the existence of the other brother, shows the importance of writing history down, and it shows how sometimes you get disconnected. And so it's so important that we as families stay reconnected.
Well, they need to understand, for one thing, that you can't, you don't live in this world by yourself. And you have to have somebody that that you can depend on. And that's family. I don't care what else goes on or how you how you argue and fuss and fight and stuff. When it comes down to it, when you need somebody, you can always go to your family. And they're always there for you.
First of all, I think we need to build some faith in God, because that's number one. That'll help you out a lot. And try to listen to advice of your older people, your elders. They're wise, so they can expand on a lot of stuff, a lot of questions that you may have. They can give you great advice.
One thing that I could tell family members would be to take life more seriously, because you only live once, and sometimes everybody doesn't make it to live a complete life. So enjoy your life, but enjoy it in a responsible way. So
What has stick with me is most likely Katrina, because it was something that I thought was very devastating, because it's sad to see that a whole bunch of people that lost lives, and they had to count on other people, but they didn't really have too much to count on.
With the black youth now, it's harder for us to find jobs than it would be back then, a couple years ago, and everything you have to stay in school, unless, you drop out, then it's like harder for you to find a job. So you stay in school, most people like to hire people with good education background, brothers during their education.
Like, people feeling like they all gotta be tough, and everybody trying to be like the next person who they think is, a model of them, and it ain't the right person. Ain't nobody really favoring nobody making money, going to college and doing all that. They favoring the rappers, the celebrities and all that. They, they got their head on wrong.
The biggest thing that really has stricken our youth is education. A lot of young youth aren't educated. They have their focus on the wrong things, as whether it's doing music or running the streets, or they don't. Nowadays, a lot of youth don't have those family values. So I would say that they need to educate themselves more on those things, like as far as book savvy and family, and it's like they're losing those values.
Mm-hmm.
When I get older, I want to be a pediatrician because I love children. A lawyer, because I like arguing, and I feel like the law system now, I don't like how people be going to jail for stuff they didn't do, and the police feel like they can do so much stuff, and they get away with it because they don't have nobody there to defend them.
I want to take my talents to Wall Street. I want future generations to know that you can do anything you put your mind to,
It's often said that the love of family is one of life's greatest blessings. Show me someone who doesn't feel this way, and I will show you someone who doesn't belong to a family. For no matter how poor a person is, if they have family, they are rich. Because when it's all said and done, Family is there to provide support, guidance, nurturing, and love. They're the ones who love you when others don't, protect you when others won't, and comfort you when you need it. Family is the key to living in this world. They make life bearable. I hope we all know when we think about the struggles that our ancestors went through, that we will remember how hard they fought to be a family and to stay together and to stay connected, and that we will too. Nothing is more beautiful than the laughter between cousins, the bond of sisters and brothers, and the connection that comes from family. Remember that no matter what you've done for yourself or for humanity, if you can't look back on having given love and attention to your family, what have you really accomplished? Other things may change us, but remember, we always start and end with family.